Would like to once again say thank you to everyone who has joined us over at the Florida Monkey Patreon channel for only $1 per month. It's even less than that if you sign up for an entire year. Fully refundable in the first 90 days. We've been able to partner with Vimeo, which is very different than YouTube. I'm not saying they don't have certain standards of things they don't allow, but they are much more reasonable. And we can take the gloves off and we can talk about things without having to worry about censors. Would love to have you over there. The primary focus of the topics: psychological operations, cognitive biases, logical fallacies. Shared this before. This was my job in the military, Army intelligence, understanding the human mind. Critical for being armored up on the 21st century battlefield. If you don't know these techniques, you'll just be a victim of them. So once again, thank you to everyone who has stepped up, put your money where your mouth is. Very much appreciate it. You guys make more of a difference than you know. However, in today's video here, would like to talk about something a little less serious, but it does illustrate a point about Antarctica and what may have happened to the ancient inhabitants of Antarctica. How many of you as a kid had the privilege of going out on a summer day and finding a small creek with your friends and using some rocks to kind of dam it up just to see if you could, basically, and maybe create a deeper spot where you could kind of cool off a little bit? I'm sure a lot of folks out there have done this. There's videos all over YouTube of people doing this. Some do it just for fun. Some do it to redirect a partial flow. Some are a lot more serious about it. Just as a disclaimer, out here on the East Coast, the authorities are not nearly as sticky about it. However, that being said, I wouldn't do it on a large flowing body of water without some type of a permit or looking into it, but usually some type of a drainage creek or small spring creek. They usually don't mess with anyone doing this unless it's causing someone else upstream a problem. Out west, however, there's huge regulations regarding all bodies of water, so just don't do it unless you're sure. However, with kids will be kids. Now, in this particular image, this is something that a lot of folks did. They would redirect a partial flow. They would go to a nearby creek, dig a channel, dig a hole, and then create a small line of rocks or some type of an obstruction that would redirect a small creek to a little place where they could just have a source of fresh water. And most of the time, nobody bothered them. But this is something mankind has been doing since history has had the ability to record it. In fact, in South America, it's a way of life. It's a necessity for survival. They have very advanced techniques that they use to trap large fish in basically what they call water courts. And they use this to survive, so they don't have to worry about fishing per se. They can just go to the water court and harvest whatever they need day to day. Now, funny story. It's my allegation that those who knew how to do this, those who had the ability to do this, migrated from Antarctica up over what used to be a land bridge between Argentina and the Antarctic Peninsula and brought this technology with them through South America to Florida. Now, this is an image of a place called Mound Key, where the Calusa Indians lived. The Calusa Indians, Native Americans, whatever you want to call them, were very, very different. When the Spanish conquistadors came here, they did not farm. They did not plant seeds. They did not harvest. They created these incredibly sophisticated water courts where they could trap fish and keep the fish there indefinitely as needed. And as they would run out of fish, they would then use different techniques to herd different schools of fish at different points at the tidal flow. And this is what they did. This is how they fed themselves. And they were the only tribe to do this. And it kind of flustered the conquistadors a little bit because they were used to trading for agricultural products with Native Americans. Well, these folks had no interest in farming whatsoever. That's covered here in this article, 2 April 2020. Calusa people stored live fish in water courts. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are like, Florida Monkey, fantastic. We've been waiting for 5 minutes. What does this have to do with Antarctica? In the 16th century, the Calusa, a fisher-gatherer-hunter society, were the most politically complex polity in Florida, and Mound Key, an island in Estero Bay off Florida's Gulf Coast, was their capital. Mound Key was their capital. Now, let me show you something about Mound Key. Let's see if I can find it here. I'm just going to go ahead and type it in so we can zoom to it. Some of you have seen this before in other videos. Okay, something's going on. There we go. All right, so here was their capital, Mound Key. Now, right next to it, there is this other key. And you can go back and look at this historically through historical imagery. There is a clearing that bears a striking resemblance, to the continent of Antarctica. Even this area here where you can actually see the water in Antarctica, if you look at it this way with the peninsula at 12 o'clock, there's a huge bay right here. This is almost exactly the shape. I just find it a very, very odd coincidence that they not only would be Native Americans who didn't farm, who fished for a living, which would pretty much be all you could do in Antarctica anyway. And then literally where their capital was, there's a clearing that looks exactly like Antarctica. But there's more to this video than that. I wanted to expound on this even more, because there's also a tie to the Romans. Now, the Romans took the idea of moving water around to a whole nother level. And many people look at the aqueducts and they're amazed, but they don't really do the full logic walkthrough on this as to where did the Romans get the ability not just to create the aqueducts, but to create the tools that would have been necessary to build the aqueducts. For example, what you're looking at here, this particular aqueduct that has the water flowing across the top of it, it only has a few inches of drop across this entire span. The engineering tools were just way beyond their time, and they were creating these hundreds of years BCE. This is a great video from Told in Stone. That's the name of the channel. Toldinstone. Let's see if I can say that again. Toldinstone, just like it sounds. Told in Stone. And it talks about the tools like the dioptera that they would have had to have made to do the survey work. And the real critical part was where they chose to get the water from. Now, this is a dioptera. You see, you would have needed the dioptera before you had the aqueduct. So where did they get the ability to create something like a dioptera? This is a tool that surveyors used, by the way, to determine drop over distance and level. It's fairly complicated. They not only created waterways above ground, they created pipes and huge tunnels and carved through solid rock, and also knew that they had to seal things up, and they also had to keep the water flowing at a specific rate. See, this is kind of the key with when you were building it as a kid, those of you out there who've done this. You realized as you built the dam, depending on where you started, where the water had to go, it got deeper and it got faster. And so you needed to be building things bigger as you went, and all of a sudden you would realize once the water got to a certain point, you couldn't stop it anymore, and it would either overtop or it would leak through. See, this was all trial and error as kids, but where did they learn? For example, how to take giant vats of concrete, drop trees into them, let the concrete set, and then chop out the trees, burn out the trees, ergo creating pipes. Where did they learn that water has to flow at a certain rate or it will get stagnant, and that will cause disease and all sorts of problems? Who taught them that? All of this had to have been learned, is what I'm going for. It all has to have been learned. In fact, their roads, they even talk about this in this article from 2018. There's a lot of things the Romans did that historians and archaeologists have no idea how they knew how to do this. Now, this is about building roads, but Roman roads were directly straight. They're mainly straight, or at least relatively straight. Interesting to note how straight compared to modern roads. Minimal incline, sometimes over hundreds of kilometers. They crossed the whole of the Roman Empire without any real huge climbs, spanning huge distances and significant geographic features. Beasts and people didn't tire as much. And this is where they really get into it. The importance of technology in construction. Today, most building projects are first carried out with virtual tools, as in the case of the Guggenheim. That's why when we look at the past, we find it hard to see construction tools as advanced technology, but there were several such tools, the dioptra, the corybates, and the groma. Who taught them how to make them? They would have needed to know how to make these before they moved the water. And this is absolutely crazy. There's one road that you would have needed to be able to look at it from 500 meters up. Although the Romans relied on scales, towers, and hills to help them draw their lines, some particularly long roads seemed rather remarkable. One of these is the Via Appia, covering more than 90 kilometers and running from Rome to Terracina, which at ground level implies projecting a construction nearly 20 times the visible horizon. Using Young's simplified equation, to have a view over this entire Roman road, we would have had to stand at a height of 550 meters, bearing in mind that Rome is about 37 meters above sea level and Terracina 22 meters above sea level, and there are no hills worthy of note between the two. The road seems more remarkable, meaning we have no idea how they did this. We have no idea. Now, some are probably saying, what, can you show us something in Antarctica that would prove this? I actually can. And we've covered this before. There are multiple places in Antarctica where it looks like there are carved roads. And there is evidence of things like aqueducts. Now, this is one of the toughest to find. And you have to look very closely at it from the right angle. This was actually brought to me long ago. Here it is. Let me get rid of the circle. We have what looks like a gully right here in the middle. And when you zoom in closely, it looks like a collapsed Roman arch here with a roadway on top of it, where you can see the continuance of it over here. There's a very subtle difference between the color of the snow and the color of the top of this, what looks like an aqueduct. See how the snow is white, but this is more of a kind of an eggshell, more like a cream colored? Well, when you look at it here, it continues over here, here, and all the way back through here. It looks like this is a collapsed roadway or some type of an aqueduct that would have gone to the sea or to a source of water. Another one that we've covered is not very far from here. It looks like a giant bridge over a gully. As you can see, there's this large rock here. And there's this channel that goes right between. When you look over here, you can see walls. Collapsed walls of buildings everywhere, as if there was a settlement here. But right here, you can see a bridge spanning the two. And a couple more examples, all in this same region. This looks like a carved Roman road. You can see the line way off in the distance here. And I'll give you the locations. That comes into here. And it's at almost a perfectly 90-degree angle. It's basically a giant crossroads. This area right here was clearly inhabited. Once again, some type of a channel, a road, an aqueduct, something coming down to an area 90 degrees. And there's one final one, actually, that I haven't shown in a very, very long time. That's not too far away. But you can see it. It's kind of caught in the shadows a little bit. It's very difficult to show because of the way they have the sun. The sun is basically on our left, shining to our right. And here in the shadows, you can see once again, there's a path here, and there's a path here. It's either some type of a water canal, an aqueduct, a road, something like this. This kind of stuff is all over Antarctica in the satellite imagery. This type of construction. And it's this really kind of a smoking gun to me, because what you would have needed to have known to create the Roman water system, and they created hundreds of these, would challenge even a modern engineer who's got a master's degree in it. All of the different types of engineering that you would need to know about. First of all, just to create the tool, the mechanical engineering, the metallurgy, to create the three different tools, the core bodies, the diopter, and the groma. You'd have to have that first, and then you'd have to have civil engineers. Even the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, they could probably do this. But to move water from springs, and that's actually the last point I wanted to cover. I'm glad I thought about it. The Romans knew not to source their water from reservoirs or from rivers. Because why? Because the level of rivers and the level of reservoirs can fluctuate. And for them to have a steady source, predictable source of water that would flow at a specific rate, they had to get it from natural springs up in the mountains, which meant sometimes they had to engineer these aqueducts for 50 miles over and through and around mountains. But they knew it had to be from those sources. How did they know that? Who would have, the one picture that I showed shows them, let's see if I can find it here, taking water from much farther away and running it right over top of a river. Instead of just trying to redirect the river or even a partial flow of the river, they went all the way up into the mountains and built these enormous structures to take spring water and bring it to Rome. And even to this day, the fountains in Rome you can drink from. They're that clean because of the design. But if you'd like to see the total breakdown of this, it's a video titled "How Did Roman Aqueducts Work?" from Told in Stone. They even had bronze fittings to go into the lead pipes that they created. And the reason the lead pipes didn't make them sick is because of the calcium deposits. The water moved so quickly through the lead pipes that it didn't have time to leach into it. They knew this. Who taught them this? These are the mineral deposits. It's absolutely stunning how they were able to do all of this. Where did the knowledge come from? Personally, my belief is, long time ago, very advanced civilization at what we would refer to as the bottom of the world, who would have had access, by the way, to copious amounts of flowing water and would have learned this. And when they finally had to leave, when natural disasters hit, like have been described recently, especially off the coast of Chile, they migrated north through South America. And for those of you asking the question, Makid, but you said there might still be people down there. Might. It might not be an either or thing. There might still be creatures living below the surface that were different than those that were living, say, in western Antarctica or on the peninsula. And they brought this technology, and that the Calusa Indians in Florida were so different, and that their headquarters was Mound Key, and literally right next to their headquarters is a clearing in the shape of Antarctica. Sorry, it's just smoke and gun for me. So I'll leave it there, and I'll let you guys go have your Sunday. But we had a lot of fun doing this as kids, no lie. Absolutely a ton of fun. It was some of the best memories. One of the final ones we did was good enough that it actually caused fish to start to nest behind the dam. And we had a place where we could go and we could, it was carp and suckers and stuff like that, but it was still quite an achievement for grade school age kids. So anyway, lots and lots of fun. Hope you guys have had a wonderful weekend. God bless. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you once again to those of you who joined us on Patreon. Would love to see you there. Take care. We'll see you guys next time.